Thank you. Thank you very much. I would first allow Robin to share his screen. Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Campbell, Director of Advocacy in Internet Society, based in Montreal, Canada. We are really happy to have you amongst us today. Today, we will cover the internet way of networking. As Victor mentioned, we're going to see the necessary baselines on which internet is, and we will evaluate the impact, its impact on internet, and talk also the research that we undertake right now within this project, and cover the fundamental actions that you can take in order to help us improve or follow this project. I will now give the floor to Dawit, who is going to explain the internet way of networking. Thank you very much, Natalie. Good evening, good morning, depending where you are. My name is Dawit Bekele, Regional Vice President for the Internet Society in Africa. It's a pleasure to see friends from the African region. Greetings to you all. I am going to speak in French for once. And for those who'd like to follow the meeting in English, I may be able to respond to your questions in English afterwards. Today, this webinar will cover the internet way of networking, the essential properties, the evaluation of the impact on internet, and then we'll have a question and reply session, Q&A session. What is the reason behind our meeting today? We are here today because governments are taking decisions that are susceptible to have an impact on internet. Governments should govern their country. They need different regulatory frameworks, but sometimes without even knowing about it, they may create problems to the internet. For instance, recently, as you very well know, there are more and more laws on social media and other networks. Before, many countries had adopted to limit the responsibilities of intermediaries. Today, more and more countries are considering to limit this limitation, and in particular in the United States and in other countries also. And it seems that this is appropriate. You can see what is happening within the sphere of social media, but this would have a negative consequence on the internet. What we'd like to do in this case is to help governments to better understand the impact of their measures on the internet. We would like them to know that when they take decisions, they should know the repercussions on the internet. Here you can see titles of articles that explain decisions that have been taken by many countries around the world. You can see in China, in the United States, and in many countries in Africa. For instance, as I am talking in Mauritius, there's a law that just passed. In fact, it's an amendment on an existing law on technology, ICT, and we are studying the impact of this law, of this amendment on internet in Mauritius. If you're here today, it's because you appreciate internet and you think that it's something that is really important, crucial. But if I have to say it, we have witnessed that during COVID-19, internet had saved us somehow, because COVID-19 came without even without us being prepared. No one was prepared, actually, but internet was already there. We can almost say that internet was prepared for this occasion. There have been little or no problem when people stopped working from their office and continued to work from their home, and life went on normally thanks to internet almost everywhere. And this has been extraordinary. Can you imagine a minute? How would this past year be without internet? And it would be very difficult to imagine its impact. Thanks to internet, we have been undertaking our works from everywhere. I'm sorry, the sound is breaking. For instance, aged people that were confined in their homes would have been in a big problem if they didn't have internet. We really collaborated to find ways to tackle the impact of the pandemic. We had to collaborate to find vaccines and other things, and this wouldn't have been possible if we did not work from home. All this was possible because internet is resilient and reactive to change, such as the change in its usage, and sometimes the change is fast. Personally, I say that imagine what would happen on what would happen if the same thing that happened on internet happened on our roads every day. Instead of taking the road that we take every morning, we would have taken other directions. Our roads would have been completely blocked because some roads are narrow, others are not adapted to the usual traffic, etc. This would have been a catastrophe, but it hasn't been the case with internet, and this is not without reason. Internet has been built with properties that enables it to be agile, resilient, and reactive. So, as you very well know, I suppose, Internet is a network of networks. What makes the resilience of Internet, its agility, is because it has properties, important properties on which it is built. And these are important properties for its resilience, for its success. We have identified 5 properties that are essential, that are indicated here, and that I'm going to elaborate on the next slide. It's an accessible infrastructure with a common protocol, an open and interoperable network, a decentralized management, and a distributed routing system with a common global identifier. A common global identifier. For the first property, an infrastructure that is accessible, that has a common protocol, meaning that the access is without restriction. Anyone can have access to Internet, to be connected to Internet. And this is what has enabled Internet to be an infrastructure, a global infrastructure. It has protocols that are shared by everyone around the world and have enabled its development at the global level. As you very well know, a network is important when its value increases and the users increase. Internet is important because essentially, because there are billions and billions of people that are connected to it. Another property worth mentioning is the fact that this architecture is open to the interoperable components and is reusable. This architecture that is open enables services that are interoperable, that enables fast innovation that is not, that doesn't require any authorization. I think the success of Internet lies in its application. And all these applications change. 20 years ago, there were applications. 10 years ago, the same thing. And today we have new applications that are astonishing us all the time. These were unimaginable long time ago, and this has been possible because Internet is open and anyone can create on Internet. That hasn't been the case for most infrastructures that existed before Internet. This is a property that seems to be simple, but is extremely important because without this property, Internet would have been an infrastructure as the others. A decentralized management and a distributed routing. This is also very important. The resilience of Internet lies in the fact that there's no center. central place from which it is managed, which means that when there is a problem in Ethiopia, where I am now, if my network has a problem, this would not have an impact on the other people using internet. Nothing would destabilize internet in this way. This is also an essential property. The fourth one that I mentioned is the existence of common global identifiers. These identifiers are uniform, and we have protocols that are the same everywhere, that creates a certain kind of coherence within the network. And finally, a network that has a general purpose. Internet hasn't been created for a specific and unique purpose, which means that it changes. We never thought that we would use internet for webinars like this one, but there have been changes, and today we can use internet to organize video conferences. And we don't know how we will use it in some years. We'll have maybe monograms, and surely we will have different applications in the future. If internet is successful, it's thanks to these properties, and it's important to note that its properties remain for the new generation. We do not want that the new generation inherits a dysfunctional internet. It's just like the environment. Why are we that much interested to protect the environment? It's because we are attached to our environment, and we don't want future generations to suffer from bad environment. The same goes with internet. We want it to be useful, to function very well. And I think we are left with some years and use it properly, and so that future generations use it properly too. So the internet way of networking should incite people to protect it because it's a common resource. I am sure that if you're here, it's because you think that internet is special. It's not an infrastructure like the others. It enabled us to survive during the pandemic. It enabled us to communicate easily, despite us being in 20 different countries. I think there are more than 10,000 kilometers between me and Natalie, but we're communicating without any problem. And this has been possible because internet has this important properties. We should preserve internet just like the environment. And when internet is degraded, it's almost invisible. It happens slowly. And when we had lost it, it's almost late. We should therefore protect internet as long as we are here, because it will be late once we lose it. And it's not something that, it's not an action that needs to be done only within the internet society, because all of us can have a role in this. As I just explained, the analogy between the internet and the environment is interesting. It's something we need to protect both. And for this, we need to be careful on what we are doing and measure the impact of our actions on internet as much as we do it for the environment. When we construct a dam, we need to do an impact assessment on the environment to know the repercussions of this infrastructure on the environment. Same thing for the internet. When there is something that can potentially have a negative impact on internet, we need to undertake a study, and we need to study the impact of a regulation and any action that we may take. So we may have a toolkit. It's actually a tool that we have developed and that we need to share with you. Robin, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dawit. Can you hear me loud and clear? Thank you. So what is the toolkit that you have spoken about? As Dawit has explained, we have the different features and also the critical properties of the internet. And each property has been explained, and we have tried to see what are the benefits of each critical property. And I would like to use terminology of philosophy. What we call critical properties are necessary but insufficient to get the benefits from it. So we have two main challenges. The first one is how we can explain in understandable words all these features that are abstract to decision makers, and then explain how we can go from these properties that are necessary but insufficient to the benefits that we would like to stem from them. It's through the protection of these properties that we can get the benefits of the internet, but we have to explain the correlation between these two. So in my experience, I have tried to do so for encryption technologies, and it has not been easy. But to help you, we would like to give you the means to explain how you can go from the critical properties to the benefits. So the toolbox has an explanation of this internet way of networking that Dawit has explained. And then we would like to explain how it can be used, mostly against the threats on the internet. And it's not only about the threats. We also deal with other things, but when threats are coming from some laws or regulations on the internet, there are also threats coming from elsewhere, from economical or social factors. And to mitigate those, we need to have policies and legislations that are appropriate. So what we would like to do is to assist you and decision makers understand the relationship between those factors, the legislations and regulations, and the critical properties. And to help you understand how these factors can hinder the progress of these benefits, and to make things much more easier than what I have just said. We have prepared a questionnaire, a checklist that is in English, sorry, to explain to you in very simple words if and the regulations that is planned introduces different factors, and to go through that checklist and understand if the regulation is appropriate. And then we also have some information and frequently asked questions. Sometimes these lists can be complicated and difficult to understand. So we're trying to really explain this whole issue in very simple words for decision makers. This can give the impression here is to say no to every regulation that is planned, and this is not what we're trying to do. It's about understanding what the repercussions are of any kind of change, be it for regulations or external factors, and to put in place the adequate policies. Knowing that these repercussions of legislations or economical factors can be a positive, negative, or neutral. So here it's about understanding how we can identify risk sources and their repercussions and how we can mitigate those effects. This is only the beginning. We have many things to expect this year, and this has been explained here on the slide as facilitators or enablers in English. And I was trying to find the right word in French for enablers, because when I saw the slide, I did not understand exactly what we meant by enablers. So it's about elements that can help get to those benefits of each critical properties. And this is what we're trying to articulate to you during this year. So we have these enablers that will be driving progress towards the benefits that we can get from the critical properties. I have begun this process by trying to define some of the technologies used for encryption. Other than encryption, we also have enablers that will be described during the third quarter of this year. We are aware that this is a lot of information, so we will have a training that we will begin in May to help you understand the use of this toolbox. And we will also provide training through online guides. so that you can see those guides online. See how appropriate these are with regards to the critical properties. See if you can identify the threats. So this year we will be developing this toolbox, and we will keep you informed of every major component of this toolbox. So now I will explain to you what you can do to help and to make this project progress. And I hope that this will be also for your own interest. So we hope you will participate to the training in May, as I've said. We also hope that you will share the resources that we will be giving to you and disseminate this to a larger audience. I think it is also important to start the awareness or sensitization of policymakers. So there are obviously some technical issues that will not be interesting for these decision makers, but it is important to make them understand the importance of these issues and help them realize to what we would like to draw their attention. Finally, we would like you to organize yourselves with your community to identify some of the case studies in your context. It is through understanding what is important to you that we can really help you. And this is what we would like to do. I think it was my last slide. So maybe Dawit will take the floor. Oh, Natalie, sorry. Yes, I would like to take the floor. I would like to really encourage you to register for the training. And so registration will be open today, and Kelly has shared the link in the chat box. So this will help you have the fundamentals regarding the internet way of networking and really understand the 5 critical properties. And also you can register and see the list of the different initiatives, the fundamental catalog, and I will also share this link in the chat box. Done. Dawit. Thank you. Maybe we can take some of the questions. So we only have 1 hour for this session, isn't it? So maybe if the participants have any comments or questions that they would like to share, this will be the time to do so. I think we can allow the participants to contribute, and I think Raft wants to take the floor. Let's allow him to speak. Raft, you can take the floor. Over to you. Raft, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. I would like to, first of all, thank you for organizing this webinar. knowing that it is very late and it's also Friday, so it's not easy to have a webinar at this hour. So what we have realized is that there are many people that I have spoken to, and they have always asked the understanding the internet way of networking. So it's important that we understand, and it's important for the community to understand how important the internet is, how powerful of a tool it is. So I think that this presentation has really informed us on how the internet is working and how important it is, and understand all the mechanisms underneath. So we need to really work on the awareness raising of the community. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Raft. I'm glad to hear your voice. It has been a while. So since the pandemic, we have not been able to meet. So it's nice to hear you. And I think you are absolutely right. The success of the internet is very easy. It's a very easy tool that we can use. And we always take it for granted. I think it's a little bit like tap water. When we have tap water in our homes, we assume that we will always have access to it, and we take it for granted until the day it's gone. And unfortunately, this is the case in my country these days. We have a shortage of water. And it's only when it's gone that we try to understand why we don't have it anymore and how important it is. And we understand all the mechanics underneath, and we understand that we exploited it way too much. So I think that internet is similar to tap water, because people are used to just using the internet without asking any questions on how it works. And now we're trying to get people to ask those questions, because the internet is not a natural thing. And we have to find a way to make people understand that it is important to go beyond the simple click. Any other comments or questions? There's a question in the Q&A tab. Abu Bakr is asking how we can have access to the toolbox. Natalie, maybe you can take this one. Yes, absolutely. Kelly has just shared the link in the chat box to have access to the toolbox. I know it's quite late for most of you, but I hope that we will still have some questions. I can see that there's another question. Rashad Sanusi is asking for some examples and initiatives that have been successful in sensitizing on the internet way of networking. I can maybe share an example. So it depends solely on your target audience. We have some examples where we have identified some legislation that would have a negative impact on the internet way of networking. So what we have done is, so we have communicated with the legislators to explain to them, how or to what extent the legislation would have a negative impact on the internet, and especially on some of the critical properties. So we have succeeded in really explaining and convincing the legislators to not go further. And sometimes some changes that can be made in the legislation can have a huge impact on the impact of the law. So this is just one example amongst others. But what we also do is that we try to identify other organizations that work on legislation that deal with technology or other decisions that might have an impact on the internet. And we help these organizations. What we're trying to do here at the Internet Society, and also promote a healthy internet. Robin or Dawit, maybe you have some examples that you would like to share. I don't have an example to share, but even before this toolbox was developed, there have been many solutions that have been proposed to stop the progress of IP in some countries and to use other sorts of tools that have had a negative impact on many aspects that even the decision makers did not really understand. So when decision makers have a problem, they want to find a solution right away. And most of the time, the people that are providing them with these solutions give solutions to really resolve the problem, but also bring other problems. And the decision makers do not see it that way because they're not experts on the matter. And even for some of them who are experts, internet has become more and more complex, and it's very difficult to understand the ramifications of some of the decisions that are taken. And usually decision makers will just make the decisions not understanding or not knowing that it would have a negative impact on the internet. They just focus on resolving some of the problems. For example, in my country, we have an issue with hate speech or fake news, and these have a very negative impact on our society. So what do we do to stop that? We cannot put restrictions on the internet and destroy the internet just to find a solution to issues related to fake news or hate speech. I think we have also other questions that have been asked. I don't know, maybe Robin can reply to Abu Bakr. What role can the regulator play in the awareness raising? Thank you, Abu Bakr, for this question. So it depends of which regulator you're talking about here. On my end, I think regulators for maybe data protection, confidentiality. So we need to have a regulator that is really aware of the issue, because the regulator can have an influence on policy and legislation. So obviously regulators, independent regulators, need to be clearly informed and also aware of the risks related to changes that can be brought to the internet way of working. And it's important that they do their job properly. Thank you, Robin. I think I will take the next question from Eric. So Eric is saying, and to summarize, that the main issue is related to the applications that roll on the internet. So it's about Google and Facebook and other applications. So it's true that most of the issues that decision makers are trying to resolve and are not coming from the infrastructure itself, but from the applications. Because applications are being used by users. So we could say that this is not an issue that concerns us, but obviously it does, because when they want to stop fake news from being disseminated on Facebook, decision makers can take some action that will have an impact not only on Facebook, but also on the rest of the internet. I can maybe give you some examples, but very simple. For instance, at times, some countries blocked some IP addresses for some of the applications. And they thought that this would resolve the issue. First of all, it obviously does not resolve the problem, because applications can use other IP addresses to function, and we can have access to them through other IP addresses. And sometimes the addresses that are being blocked are addresses of servers. So although the objective was to really hinder an application, it had an impact that was broader on other applications. And I have said, as I have said, sometimes some of the solutions that have been taken by the decision makers were not really resolving their issue. So who would like to take the next question? I think it's rather a comment. I think the last sentence is a question. Natalie, would you like to take the floor? No, I was about to say the same thing. What we have in the Q&A tab are mostly comments and not really questions. Maybe Victor can read the next question. I can try to give you an answer to that question. So I think this goes beyond the scope of internet society, which is much more technical. Maybe in the beginning it was technical, but it's not anymore, because the internet is not just a technical tool. It involves technology and also policies. and also people that use the internet. So, and this is why we are more and more interested in the whole issue of policies and on what the decision makers are doing with regards to internet, and how some of the decisions and some of the policies that are implemented have an impact on the internet. You can use words like lobbying. I don't think that the internet society is lobbying, but we're just trying to create awareness. We want people to understand the internet better, and also make sure that decision makers have all the necessary information before making any decision. And I think we, as the internet society, want people to get more interested in the internet. And I think Haft has said it very well. People love the internet. People like to click on something and get everything that they want. We want them to go beyond the simple click and understand how they can always get an answer when they click on something on the internet, and understand the mechanics of the internet. Because all the work that has been done and the foundation of the internet is important to understand. It's like having a house, and if you do something to the foundations of a house, you could easily have it collapse. So it's important to not wait for the internet to crash or to collapse to be interested in the way it works and understand the foundations of the internet. Foundations is the most important part that keeps the house standing. So it's important to understand the different issues that are related to the internet. I hope that I have replied to your question. I would like to add to what Dawit has said. I think that our main objective is to educate people so that the foundations of the internet remain healthy. So the key word here is education. We want people to have all the necessary tools to make the right decisions in the future as well. I think there's one last question from Jorge Benetti. Who would like to take this one? I think I can reply to Jorge if you'd like me to, but I will reply in English if this is okay with you.
Très bien. So
Perfect.
Okay, I've switched to English. I hope that's reaching the right channels. Jorge, thank you for your question, which is about assessing the internet ecosystem from the perspective of the Southern Hemisphere. So, for example, Argentina, Australia, New Zealand. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. You have different policy perspectives, and you may be having to respond to different policy initiatives. One that comes to mind immediately is from news headlines today that New Zealand is taking a different line on the regulation of encryption to the Northern Hemisphere members of the small group it's in, which is Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, and USA. So yes, we appreciate that you may face different policy imperatives. I think the answer is, please use the same toolkit, but apply it to your contexts and let us know what imperatives you're facing. If that means that we need to change the toolkit itself, okay. But my hope is that what it means is the toolkit will still be valid, but you'll contribute use cases that are specific to your hemisphere, but which I think will probably be reusable elsewhere. I hope so.
I think we can stop here. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Natalie, for the presentation. Thank you for also the Q&A. And I would like to thank the participants for taking the floor. I think some of the questions did not find an answer, but as you know, we have the Connect platform. And some of the questions that you have asked will be answered through the Connect platform. I would like to thank you again for taking the time to participate. And before I conclude, as I have said, I would like just to remind you what the next steps will be. So this webinar is the second phase of your participation after registration. And for those who wish to have a participation certificate, you will need to implement an initiative at local level. And my colleague Kelly will share the catalog of ideas and initiatives in the chat box to help you and encourage you to work on those initiatives. And you can also collaborate with your chapter coordinator. And you will have to implement an initiative and submit a report before June 30th. And if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me or your chapter coordinator. This being said, I will give the floor to Natalie, Robin, and Dawit for concluding remarks. Thank you. I would like to thank you for participating and wish you good luck with the initiatives that you would like to implement at local level. Natalie, over to you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Just one last word. There was a comment in the chat box saying that the link for the training is not the correct one. Now we'll give you the new link. So sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for participating. It was a pleasure to have such a high attendance for this webinar, knowing that it is very late now, especially in Africa. So this shows that there's really interest for this subject. And as Robin has said, I hope that we will be able to work together to have a sustainable internet and make sure that the internet remains an amazing tool for many, many years to come. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dawit. See you very soon, and I wish you a nice weekend. Goodbye.